evening from here from South Dakota in the warm weather in God's country. Yeah, well, late afternoon, I guess you'd say it's evening. It's not night yet, so it's evening from our great state. As we continue, and like I say, some of the hardest parts of the Bible to interpret and try to understand the language in this chapter 11. It's kind of what you would call technical, hard chapter to put together. If you just read it, maybe if you know something about history, you're going to do it, because that's really what this chapter is all about. God telling us what's going to happen. He's talking about historical events that are going to take place in the future. Here is the beginning of 534 BC. And some people say, well, you know, how can Daniel write this? Well, God gave it to him. In the creation, if you would prefer, here it is at the end. You have the beginning, and here it's coming to the end. He goes all the way to the end where Christ returns to set up his millennial kingdom or millennial era. And God sees all. God sees all through the centuries. He sees now. He sees all the way to the end. He saw from the beginning to the end, and everything in between. He just knows it all. And, of course, he gives us to Daniel. It's his prerogative, and that's what he does and writes it down here. So chapter 11 is God pointing out certain events and telling them to Daniel, saying, I want you to know this, that this is how things are going to be. God knows you would be here tonight. God knows everything you're doing. He even knows what clothes you're going to wear. He knew even how I was going to shoot and sport clays today. He just knows. In our travel going back and forth. And some, like I say, don't think Daniel did this, but God gave it to him to do that. Now, you know why many people believe in evolution is because they don't believe God could do or pull all of this off. They don't believe he could create the world this way. Doesn't believe that he could even give Daniel this kind of information. That's why they believe in evolution. Trading guys don't want to believe God in creation and what he did. They just don't think he can do it. That's why they believe in it. They doubt that he could create this universe. And did he do it? Sure he did. Yeah, he did. We know or think we know what it takes to create life. You see that today so prevalently. Trying to make us robots, basically, with the RMA and all this that they're putting in shots. If you look at AI and they're trying to put it on there, people want to live forever to get their brain put in. You think it's a science fiction movie, but it really isn't if you check it out. They plan on doing this. I can't think of the man's name. Well, Billy Crone is a pastor. He brings it out, but it's the guys that are in the...
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, the guy that's in the World Union.
Oh, Klaus Schwab.
Schwab and all of them. I mean, they're on there, and they tell you. You can look it up and find out. That's what they're trying to do. We think we can do it, and we don't need God. We don't believe God could do it. But only God can. You see, only God knows what is going to happen from the beginning in. You don't have any problems with that, I hope. Anyway. Because God knows. So chapter 11 is God telling Daniel again about the events that's going to happen in the future from 534 BC that Daniel's writing this. We're going to see it tonight. We're going to see he's going to be writing about a man named Antiochus Epiphanes, and we'll see him later. You may have heard about him and what he did, and about some events that transpire from 170 BC. Remember, you're counting backwards to 40 BC. 140 BC. Daniel is writing this down several hundred years before it even happened. An example, you see Nebuchadnezzar's statue, you see the Babylonian kingdom, the Persian kingdom, the Medo-Persian kingdom, the Greek kingdom, the Greek Empire, Roman Empire, and you got the legs divided, and of course the 10. All of this is there, and we see that God gave it to him. In every age, God has a certain amount of believers. Okay, we're talking about the Old Testament, so you're talking about Israel. It's always there. And we seem to have them in this age too. We sometimes wonder where they are. but we do have them now too. Example is Elijah. Remember Elijah? Elijah killed the prophets of Baal, all running around. You thought, well, man, he's great. God took care of him, did everything he asked God to do, the fire and all that drying up and all this. But then Jezebel says, if you're here tomorrow, I'm going to kill you, chop your head off. And he runs off. And he hides. And God says, what are you doing here? And he says, well, I'm the only believer left. And then God shows him 7,000. There's always going to be believers around. God has proven this. Now, Rome is starting to gain power at this time. They start to, in about 40 BC, they're starting to move up. They will rule for about 500 years. We know that after they gain the power. Now, everyone is becoming afraid of Rome in the east. They're starting to build. That's what they're starting to see. Now, Seleucus, one of the generals in Asia Minor, he comes along, and Israel is in between. The Ptolemies, another one of Alexander's generals that I've told you before, they're separated. He's down in Egypt. Well, every time they wanted that, he's over there, and they want to attack. Where did they go? They had to come through Israel, through their land. And when they came to fight, they would go through Israel, and they were cruel to Israel. Even though Israel wasn't in the fight, they would treat them very cruelly. That's not good, because those are God's chosen people. And if you do harm to them, God is going to get back to you. He tells us that. Who blesses you, I will bless them. He curse you, I will curse them. And so this wasn't good. And why? Because what does Israel do? Why? Because Israel, they were going to write the Bible and bring Christ into the world. All of our authors are either Jewish, you have a Gentile Luke, but all of them wrote the Bible. God was going to use them, and who did Christ come through but a Jew? So God was getting them. God will see to it that they are protected. If you don't go, you can go even recent history, the 67-day war back in the 60s. And there's examples from the other side that they say, oh, they saw these big armies, these big angels around them, and there was nobody there. So God is going to take them. So when you strike Israel, you are striking God in a way. And that's just not going to happen. And maybe that's sometimes what's going on in our world today. Today, saw where the Mississippi River is so low, they found an old ship and bodies. And Meade Lake out there in Arizona, Utah, that's in Arizona. Well, anyway, it's way down, and you're finding cars there. We have got drought, the Mississippi's low, all this for water. Maybe this is why. Tornadoes that increases that we don't know. We're not doing much for Israel. And other countries against them. And sorry to say, our president right now is not for Israel. So, now, we have tonight, like I said, we're the man of Antiochus of Epiphanes. He rises up, and he's one of the cruelest people. He's a madman, basically, I guess you could say. He is in Rome in the military school. His father, who's Antiochus the Great, said, I want you to be a military man. I want you to learn. So Rome was coming up, and Rome has got the best school for war. So I want you to go to Rome. So he goes down to Rome, and he goes to that military school. So in the next 40 years, he will even fight against some of those that he went to school with. And he was kind of, after that, he was kind of looking for a job after school. And over in Greece, they were looking for a general, basically, somebody who was going to run the army. But they didn't want just a general for war, but they wanted kind of like a political general. I guess that's the best way to put it. Someone that just fighting wasn't it either, if he could make peace the other ways. So he said, okay, I'll take the job. So from 25 years old to 40, those 15 years, he learned the Greek culture. He came enamored with the Greek culture. And everybody should be brothers. Everybody should be like, just like Alexander the Great did. Before he died. He did not have many battles. At 40, his brother was killed, and he was devastated by that. He was very close to a brother. He was devastated by it, and his personality changed. And some people say become a madman. He became crazy. but he wasn't thinking rational anymore. He was an angry person, period, inside. He couldn't get over it. And he carried that hatred around, and it made him to be a different individual than he was at first. And it turned him into this man that we know. So he gathered an army. He starts south, coming across Palestine, which is very cruel, into Egypt. And this is where we are tonight. Now, as we start in verse 18, where we left off. Now, so verse 18 says, after this shall he turn his face unto the isles, and shall take many. Now, this is his father. This is Antiochus the Great. He could not conquer Egypt. He fell short down there. Remember, Linus came along, and Linus says, you can't keep going. If you do, then you're going to end up fighting with Rome. Well, he didn't want to do that against Rome because Rome was stronger, and he knew that, so he didn't do it. So he turned and he conquered some islands. Like I said, conquered some islands. He said, well, he turned many to some isles, and shall take many. But a prince, for his own behalf, should cause the reproach offered by him to cease without his own reproach. He shall cause it to turn upon him. Okay? And he came back, and he was angry, even though he's conquered those islands. Verse 19, then he shall turn his face towards the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Now, he had a son named Seleucid IV. Now, what they did, which was common practice back then, he had a sister and brother. Now, this was his son, Antiochus Epiphanes. Now, he had the son Seleucid IV, and then, of course, Antiochus Epiphanes, but he also had a sister, Cleopatra I. Okay? And his sister married Ptolemy the Fifth of Egypt. Now, what they did this is for so they could have peace and maybe wouldn't be fighting. It was kind of common practice. Understand, whether you like it or not, women back there had no choice in this. These marriages were arranged whether they liked it or not. And sometimes this would happen to cause peace in between two nations or two groups of people. So she married him, and now they had two sons, and we're going to see them. They had two sons, Ptolemy the Sixth and Ptolemy the Seventh. Now they come into view towards the end of this. Like I say, this is more of a history of what's going to happen. God's saying this is what's going to happen. Okay. And after in verse 20, then shall stand up in his estate a raiser of taxes. Now this is Seleucid the Fourth. Okay, the son shall rise up in his face. And shall turn up the estate and raiser of taxes in the glory of the kingdom. He felt if he could raise enough taxes, then he could build an army and rule the world. But within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. Now he's going to be destroyed. What is he talking about here? Okay. Shall stand up, like I say, is Seleucid IV. He's going to raise the taxes. Now Herodias one day went into his room and he assassinated him. Now, this, because the brother Antiochus Epiphanes, this was his brother, and it made him angry. This is the bitterness. Like I said, his brother was killed. He was murdered. He was assassinated. Okay? And so that made him mad. Now, of course, Antiochus the Great, he's already gone off the scene. So these two. So verse 21. Let's see. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person. Now that's Antiochus of Epiphanes. He's a vile person. He's an angry person, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. He wanted to get the kingdom back that Alexander the Great had. He wasn't going to get it. They weren't going to do it. He almost conquered the world. Antiochus Epiphanes almost conquered the world. Now, sometimes you'll see Antiochus Epiphanes called the fifth or the fourth because he comes from the Seleucid family, but we know him as Antiochus Epiphanes. But he did. He almost conquered the world. But look at it says there what? Because he didn't want to fight. He says he comes what? In peaceably. He's coming in peaceably. He says, I don't want to fight. Let's be brothers. Just what we see now. How about in Revelation, we see the white horse, the Antichrist, which he is a type. Antiochus Epiphanes, he's not him, but he's a type, does the same thing. He comes with peace with a white horse. He comes in peace. But it's a false peace, just like in Revelation. In Revelation, he's the Antichrist, and that horse turns into the red horse, which is battle. That's what he was doing here. He was trying to deceive the people. He's trying to come in peace with flatteries. What do we get from our politicians this time of year? A bunch of flatteries, smoke screens, basically, trying to flatter us to vote him in. He's doing the same thing. We see it that way in politics today. They're trying to do all this and come peaceably and say, I'm going to give you this, blah, 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 to get into office. Really, what he wants is what? Power. What do our politicians today want? Power. Whether it's president, government, representatives, whatever, mayors. We see the same thing going on today. And in verse 21 now, and he starts to move on Egypt at the end of that verse 21. Peaceably obtain a kingdom by flatteries. Okay, so he's starting to move. Look at verse 22. And with the arms of a flood shall they be overthrown from before him, and shall be broken, yea, all the princes of the covenant. Okay, so he gets a large army in verse 22. He gains a large army, and he runs roughshod over Palestine, Israel. Like I say, Israel's in the middle, and they're always catching it. He starts down towards Egypt, but he's got to go through there, and so he starts to do. The princes of the covenant is Ptolemy the fifth, who was married to Cleopatra the first, his sister. He overcomes him. Okay. Now we'll look at verse 23. And after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall come strong with a small people. Now, he had a small army at the beginning, and he's going to say, I am not going to fight, just brotherhood and peace, but he becomes a madman. Okay. In verse 24, he shall enter peaceably, like I said, even upon the flatteries places of the providence, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches, yea, and he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds even for a time. Now he comes in peacefully brotherhood, but it's only for a time. It's not permanent. He doesn't do it. It only lasts a very short time. Look at verse 25. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south, which is who? This is the kings of the south is the Ptolemies. Ptolemies 6 and 7, the two sons of Cleopatra the first, his sister. He comes up against the king of the south, and shall be stirred up for the battle, and very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. There was a short time, so what was happening? Yeah, it didn't last. He delays till he gets his big army. He has about 100,000 or more in army, Antiochus Epiphanes, and getting into Egypt. But remember, like Linus said to his father the Great, you can't get back here anymore. Well, went back home to Antiochus, meets the same Antiochus Epiphanes, meets the same fate. The same things that Linus did. Because this is the breadbasket, he was defeated. And he had to go back. And we see that in verse 26. Yea, they that feed of the grain of Egypt, that was the breadbasket of the world. You're not going to do it, so Rome was going to protect it. The portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overthrow, and many shall fall slain. Now, the grain in Egypt was there. Antiochus Epiphanes fights and against them, and thousands of his men die because he wanted to conquer them. He didn't care. He was going to do it. This is a madman. So he is defeated, and he goes back through Israel again. And later when he gets back to Israel, guess what happens up in the mountains up there? Comes a group, Matthias. Matthias was a religious man, and he was trying to tell the people, don't be afraid of these Seleucids. Don't be afraid of these Greek people. Don't be afraid of Rome. We are God's people. And we are to be afraid. We are going to be victorious. We do not need to be afraid of Antiochus Epiphanes. So later Matthias, he was killed, but his son Judas Maccabee and his younger son John went on for them, and they were just, they ended up kicking the Greeks out of the temple. Remember, they desecrated the temple. Antiochus Epiphanes put up his statue in there, and it made them so mad, angry, they came together, they fought like guerrilla warfare, and they kicked him out of there. They defeated the army, and Israel had about 100 years, from about 140 to 40 BC, of peace. You see, God was using them, and Israel became a nation strong. That Israel was a nation when Rome came in, and a nation when Christ was born. God knew everything was going on, and he was using these people to get Israel ready, to stand up, to kick them out of there, so that he could use them to strengthen Israel for when Rome came. And they were still basically a nation when Rome came in. But what else happened that said it was going to do? In verse 27, the two brothers. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at the time appointed. In other words, God's saying, look, nothing's going to happen until I decide it's going to happen. He is in control of everything. But what happens with these two, Ptolemy the sixth and Ptolemy the seventh, speaking lies, they both wanted power, so guess what they did? They started fighting among themselves. Okay? And then, for nothing else, God calls their numbers, God takes care of them, and they're killed. And that's where we'll pick up the next time. But see, a search for power always destroys people. It makes them lie, it makes them do things that they don't want to do. And we see that so much in our society today. Lying is natural today. It's not something that isn't done. We accept it for what it is. People lie to get the positions they want, to get what they want. They'll do anything for it. And we see how these people who are looking for power, trying to get that power in their life, no matter what happens or what they're going to do, they want the power. And they will lie to do it, and it always somehow ruins them. Now, they may not lose their lives because that was the politics in those days. And we pick this up, like I say there. But it destroys people. It destroys their lives, destroys their reputations in life. And so this shows that too. But it shows that God is in control. And none of this is going to take place until God says it does. And God told Daniel that's what it is. That's what chapter 11 is all about. God says all this is going to come about. And it does. You can look through history and you can see it. You can grab ancient history, the Cambridge volumes, and see all of this came through. All of this happens. And it's the only way you understand what's going on in Daniel. If you read that, how do you know it's the Seleucids and the Ptolemies? And Antiochus the Great and Antiochus Epiphanes? You don't unless you study somewhere to find what those scriptures are really talking about there. The Bible has everything in it that we need to know and to understand it. And so now we can see why these verses were there and what they applied to. God's allowed us to understand what's going on in Daniel for the future. Folks, don't worry about what's going on today. There's things of nuclear war and people talking about get prepared for this, that, and the other. I do not believe this world's going to be destroyed by nuclear war. God's not going to allow it to be, because it says in the end, there's still nations, different people, different languages. God is going to let it control. I mentioned the AI people. I'm like Billy Crone. I don't believe God's going to allow that to happen. To make us get individual parts and put our brain in this mechanical thing, or whatever you want to call it. I just think it's not going to reach that point before the Lord comes back and is set up. But remember, God is on the throne. He is in control. And he gave Daniel this, and he's always going to be in control. His purpose, his will be done here. We may not like how it's going to get there, but it's going to happen. But if you don't know, and you don't have that faith, and you don't have that peace in what's going on and realizing God's in control, maybe you don't know God. Maybe you just became a Christian and you don't understand it. Well, you need to read your word. But one way you can get this and feel calm about everything and not be so upset and have the peace of God that I've been talking about in John on Sunday mornings, the only way you can have that peace is come to know Jesus Christ personally. And then before you do that, you got to recognize that you do not know him, that you are separated from him, which we call sin, breaking his laws. You need to realize that. Then you need to believe that Jesus came. And he went to the cross of Calvary to pay for your sins, a perfect sacrifice, shed his blood. He died, for the wages of sin is death for you. You need to believe that. And then you need to confess and ask Jesus into your life. That's how you can be secure of your future and not worry about all this stuff that's going on. Yes, we don't want it. I don't mean you to that, but worry that it's just making you shake and making you sick. Because God is in control. And you would know that if you know him. Let me pray. Father, again, we just thank you for this time. This is a tough chapter. Tough to go many verses than we have to understand it. And Father, as we get through this, we just pray for your guidance and direction, your wisdom to put all this together. And Father, just use it for your glory. And if there's one that doesn't know you that hears this, Father, may this draw them to you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.